Hey, Shalom family, Most High in Christ bless. Most High in Christ bless. Let's go ahead and share the link, and we'll begin shortly. Begin shortly. All right. If anybody can scribe, go ahead and let me know, and we'll send up the prayers and get started. Shalom, shalom, family. Most High in Christ bless. Most High in Christ bless. If anybody can scribe, please let me know. Please let me know. Okay. So you all right, brother Adam Raphael. Thank you. All praise, all praise. So let's go ahead and Let's go ahead and get ready to face Jerusalem, send up these prayers. Father, we come before you, thanking you for another opportunity, Father, to get things right. Father, we thank you for your mercy. Father, we thank you for being the Most High God of Israel and none else. Father, I ask that you continue to be with the bishop and bring healing, Father. Father, I ask that you continue to increase our understanding. Father, I give you all your praise, glory, and honor for your many blessings, Father. I thank you for good health. Thank you for a sound mind, Father. I ask that you please be with all of those who are sick, those who are weak in body and in spirit. Father, we ask that your will be done and none else. In the name of your son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right. All right. So, all right, we got a topic today. The topic today is it's time to get our minds right. All right, it's time to get our minds right. Um, like a bishop mentioned, and like leadership mentions quite often, when it comes to the level of classes that we receive in IUIC, second to none. The understanding is obviously there. Um, when it comes to the breakdowns, the revelations, the prophecies, but like it's been said many times before, um, that is great knowledge. But at the end of the day, is that going to change us from being sinful to being righteous? Not necessarily. All right, so we have to make sure that receiving that, that type of info, those type of scriptures, those type of breakdowns, that we, all right, that we still get ourselves right, all right, that we don't stray away. So that's the tone of today's class. We got to get our minds right, all right, to receive what leadership is bringing out. All right, a lot of times, being young in this thing, you get excited hearing the mysteries, the breakdowns, and things of that nature, but you can't forget what this thing is all about. All right, so I want to start at the book of Genesis, the 6th chapter. All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 6 and verse 5. It says, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." All right, so we got to start right here. All right, so the Most High, he saw after a while, with the situation with Adam, Eve, their offspring, he saw that the thoughts of man, the heart of man was continually wicked. All right, so he realized that his spirit could not dwell in man anymore because of their wickedness. All right, now I'm gonna start there. Start there, then we'll branch off. Um, let's go to 1 Corinthians 3. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 16. All right, so knowing this, knowing that man is wicked, his intentions, his thoughts, wicked imaginations, you understand? Knowing all of this, we have to have a certain type of mindset when it comes to ourselves. A lot of times, we get to a point in this truth where we think, I guess, we've made it, or we think that we've reached a certain spiritual level where certain things no longer apply to us. And if you heard me teach before, that's one of the most dangerous things ever. There's no doubt you should have spiritual accomplishments. You should have milestones that you reach. But the moment that you convince yourself that you don't deal with something, you're setting yourself up for failure. So I started with Genesis 6 because the Most High God Himself, the creator of heaven and earth, the creator of everything, He understood when it came to mankind that the imaginations of the heart or the mind were continually wicked. All right, so let's read this. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Watch this. It says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you." All right, so um, we got to think about the old covenant, how we used to treat the temple or the tabernacle, the holies of the holies, how it could be no defiled thing within the tabernacle, the temple. All right, so God is saying in this new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah that our bodies are now the temples. All right, now it says, I'll read it again. It says, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. Now, verse 17, it say, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. So I want to take a look at that for a minute. It says, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. All right, so we got to think about it when it, in parallel to the actual temple. Okay, couldn't have heathen in the temple. You couldn't have dwarves. You couldn't have. You had to offer the sacrifices a certain way, a particular way. So when it comes to our temple in this day and age, meaning our flesh, this earthly tabernacle right here, we have to understand it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. We have to be blameless to the point where what no defiled thing can come into this temple or this tabernacle. What will defile us? It will be sin. All right, sin would defile us, brothers and sisters. So I know a lot of times, hey, myself included, all of us, at some point in time, we're like, man, I need help with this. How can I get over this? Well, our motivation is in the scriptures. All right. What happens is when we're not studying consistently, these things slip. When you read the book of Hebrews, the second chapter, it says just that. So when we read these scriptures, things when it says, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, we ought to take the earnest heed to that, meaning that's very, very serious. It's very, very serious and not to be taken lightly. All right, it says, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. It didn't say maybe. It didn't say if and, or it didn't say nothing like that. It said, God shall destroy us if we defile our temples. If we allow sin to dwell within our members or in our temple, we will be destroyed. So let's keep that in mind throughout the whole class. And once again, today's topic is it's time to get our minds right as we see the day approaching. Uh, let me go here instead of quoting the whole class. Second Peter's 3, 2 Peter chapter 3, excuse me, and verse 10. Here we go. All right, this is the book of Second Peter chapter 3, verse 10. It says, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burnt up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? The key is this. We have to stay on task. I'm pretty sure, brothers and sisters listening this morning, I'm pretty sure you've got to a point where you are doing good. You have done good. But it's all about the consistency. It's all about the consistency, not dropping off. You know the things that you've overcome, but you know that is that nagging sin that just keeps coming back and you keep falling victim. Even though you've seen that movie 1,000 times, you saw that if you do this, you leaving yourself open for that. But yet you still allow yourselves to go through or down that road. You understand? And it's going to lead to this. We have to come back to 1 Corinthians 3:17. It says, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Think about it. Another part of that is what? When we, as a nation, both Israel and Judah, you know how we defiled ourselves in times past? With idols. Okay? We defiled ourselves in times past with idols. Understand this, that idolatry covers every sin that we battle in this day and age. Whether it be drunkenness, there's an idol for that. Whether it be fornication, there's an idol for that. Self-worship. You understand? All of those things lead back to idols. So if we are addicts, drug addicts, porn addicts, alcoholics, whatever it may be, understand when we fall into those things, if we find ourselves occupied in those things, we are guilty of worshiping idols, okay? And understand that idols did nothing but do what? Bring death and destruction to us. That's why we over here right now. That's why we in America right now, because of idol worship. All right, so we have to break away from the idols. All right, let's go to Ezekiel 14 and 3. And today we're going to go over how to get our minds right and how to focus. All right, so we're not carried away by these dumb idols, right? Just like it says in 1 Corinthians 12. Because that's exactly what it is. It's dumb as hell. Because we already know that's not going to lead, that's not going to turn into anything good for us. We knew that, but yet it's such a stronghold, yet we still battle. But God is telling us these dumb idols, they ain't going to profit us nothing. They can't speak. They can't do any of those things. You understand? We have the true God, the one true God, the only true God, creator of heaven and earth. But yet, we get caught up with these dumb idols. Okay? So let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 3. Watch this. It says, Son of man, these men have set up, I'll just start at verse 1. It says, Then came certain of the elders of Israel unto me and sat before me. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their heart and put the stumbling block of their iniquity before their face. Should I be inquired of at all by them? So think about it. When it says these men have set up idols in their heart, your heart is your mind. All right. When you read the book of James, the first chapter, it gives you a breakdown on how sin is conceived. It all starts where? In your mind. Now, I'm just looking at the comments. I'm not going to say your name out loud, but I'm looking at a comment. Somebody said they needed a spouse, right? Somebody said they needed a spouse. Now, I will tell you this. A lot of brothers and sisters, they think that that is the solution and that's the end all. It is when you read 1 Corinthians 7, but watch what I'm about to say. If you don't deaden that idol now, you'll bring that into the marriage. Okay? I'll say it again. If you don't deaden that idol now, you'll bring that into the marriage. And you thought you had problems now. The problems will be even worse. Okay? So you got to understand, even if you're looking for that spouse to help ease that lust demon or whatever it may be, okay? Understand that now is not an excuse just to overlook it and think that, hey, as soon as I get this wife, as soon as I get this husband, it's just going to go out of the window. You've already deceived yourself. So what I saw in the comments, all right, understand this. Have set up their idols in their heart and at all by them. So the scripture says no, because why? They had it set in their hearts to do evil instead of the Most High God's laws being at the forefront of their minds, their hearts. They had I. Therefore, speak unto them and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, every man of the house and cometh to the prophet, I, the Lord, will answer him that cometh. It's called repentance. It's called repentance. If we want the Most High God to bless us, if we want the Most High God to okay, you have to identify it, confess it, so you can be healed. So you can be healed. All right, let's read that in James 5. So today's topic is it's time to get our minds right. Okay, somebody said the video keeps cutting out. How are we doing? I'm sorry, y'all. I just want to make sure. Somebody said the video was cutting out. It keeps stopping. How are we doing? Am I good? Are we good? Or it keeps going out? Ah, man. Okay, y'all can see me. Y'all can hear me. Okay. Hmm. Ah, I'm in the matrix. Shucks. Okay. Freezing bad. It's Facebook. All right. The people say it's Facebook that's messing us up. I mean, my connection on my end looks good. Okay. All right. This is what I'm gonna do. Lord's will on the replay. It works out when it gets uploaded to YouTube. Signal's a little choppy. All right. So, all right. Some people are saying we are good now. It's better now. So I'm gonna just continue to teach. All right. And I hope it gets better. All right. So go to James 5. Let's go to James 5 and 16. All right, this is the book of James 5 and 16. All right, it says, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that ye may be healed. All right, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. All right, so if you battling, the scripture tell you what to do. You got to confess that thing, even though it may be something, because you don't want that to manifest. You don't want that thing to grow. Now, is the scripture telling you to confess that thing to just anybody? Absolutely not. Because there's some people that will use that thing against you. Okay. So understand it's got to be somebody trustworthy. Don't let it be a peer. You understand? It's watch yourself. You got to watch who you say these things around. Okay. So I'll say that if you want healing from these idols, all right, you have to confess that thing. Okay, it says the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Availeth much. All right. Now, let's go to the book of Proverbs because today's topic is it's time to get our minds right. All right, so we need to know how to do so. We need to know how to do so. All right, this is the book of Proverbs, the first chapter. All right, let's start at verse 1. All right, it says, Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity, to give subtly to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. Now check this. Now check this thing out right here. It say, a wise man will hear and will increase learning. Now you have to, all of us have to read that and be like, is that me? Am I a wise man? Am I a wise sister? You understand? Because a lot of us, we come into this truth and we learn that we Israel, we got to keep, the feast days, things like that. But that's good for you. You shut the Bible and you just begin to go through the motions. That is not a wise brother or sister. They say a wise man will hear and will increase learning. You know how you increase learning? By studying. So you have to ask yourself and be real with yourself and match yourself up or compare yourself according to the scriptures and see, is that me? Is that me? Okay. Verse 6, it says to understand a proverb in the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. The only way you'll do that You have to attend to the elders. You have to be around. You have to study so you can understand what they're talking about. All right, verse 7, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. It says, fools despise wisdom and instruction. So, guess what? Wouldn't it be very hard to overcome those idols if you are not adhering to what it says a wise man will do? If you're in the congregation of the fools. All right, now watch this. Here's some advice given to Timothy. All right, watch this. Let's go to First Timothy chapter 4. I might just read the whole chapter, but depending on time. All right, First Timothy chapter 4. It says, and I want us to relate too, because this parallels with us and in this present time as well. So think about the instruction. Give me one sec. I just got an alert about the about why it's going so slow. See something. I'm sorry. One moment. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read this real quick. This relates to us right here as well. This is book of First Timothy chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Those are those idols. Those are those idols right there. Verse 2, it says, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats, which God have created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. So in Timothy's time, understand, there were spirits that walked away. There were spirits that were trying to subvert others. When you read the book of Acts 20, they had certain men of the leaders, the apostleship of their own selves rise up and turn away from the gospel. Now, think about it. When it says forbidding to marry, that is going into what? They would forbid you to marry off of what basis? Off of their own accord? No, they would use the scriptures to do it. I want you to understand what was going on during this time and what's going on today. They would forbid to marry. You have what? Leviticus 21 and 7, which says that what? That says that you should not marry a whore. All right, now think about it. Think about coming into the knowledge of Christ. Think about all the Gentiles, right? That are us. Weren't they whores? Weren't they whoremongers? Why? Because they were serving idolatrous gods, right? So not you, but at this time, what was going on? They were saying, well, you can't marry her. You can't marry him because he used to be involved in orgies worshiping Saturn or whatever god it may have been. So what did they do? They took the scriptures and perverted it. And what did that cause the people to do? Fall into more wickedness. You understand? So in that time, these things were going on. In this time, you see the same thing in Catholicism, certain sects of Christianity, saying that the priest can't marry, things of that nature. And what is that causing the people to do? It's causing a lot of them to touch young boys and girls and fall into fornication. Okay? It says commanding to abstain from meats. We had what? The forefather Daniel. He didn't eat meat. Him and the three holy children. You had what it says in Ezekiel, that we have defiled bread amongst the Gentiles. So they would take scriptures and tell you you cannot eat these meats because of those scriptures. Okay, so they would take the word of God and flip it. So now I use those examples to show you today. You're going to have men crept in unawares. You're going to have men that's going to do what? They're going to take the scriptures and try to manipulate you with doctrines. Okay? That's why Paul was giving Timothy this advice, this instruction, like what we read in Proverbs, the first chapter. All right, watch this. I'm gonna finish verse 3. It says, forbidding to marry and commanded to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. Meaning what? Know the truth. That yes, you can eat meats. Why? Because you know Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy the 14th chapter. We know the truth. We understand what animals we can and cannot eat. Verse 4 says, for every creature of God is good. Every creature, meaning what? It's good for its purpose. It was created for a purpose. A swine is a good creature, just not good to be eaten. You understand? It's good because God created it to clean the earth. Okay? Verse 4 says, for every creature of God is good and nothing to be defined by the word of God in prayer. If thou put this, if you teach these things, what to look out for, you understand? Because that was what's being taught. That was how people were perverting the scriptures at that time. So, meaning what? As a teacher, as a leader, as a watchman, if you teach the people these things, this would be good. Just like the leadership, just like we're teaching our people now to be aware of sin. You understand? To have your eyes open for these things so you don't get caught up in it. All right. Verse 6, it says, if thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and of good doctrine, whereunto thou hast attained. All right, verse 7, it says, now watch this. If you don't want to get corrupted, if you don't want to get distracted, right? It says, but refuse profane and old wives' fables, and exercise thyself rather unto godliness. You don't want to exercise yourself into things that are not backed up in the Bible. Old wives' fables is just straight foolishness. All right, it's not based off of scriptural text. Okay, what's some old wives' fables that Jake say this day and age? They'll tell you it as fact and law, but it's not backed up in the Bible. It say if you eat something before you jump in the pool, you'll get a cramp in your stomach. Where is that coming from? It's not necessarily true. It's not. I've eaten a lot of times jumping in the pool. I never got a cramp. What you got? I don't know if you've seen Soul Food. Makai Pfeiffer character, he said, if you step on a crack, you break your mama back. Just niggerdom. Just foolishness. So don't get caught up in sayings, okay? You want to get caught up in bring that into truth. Like, bro, what you talking about? There's a scripture for that? No, there's no scripture for that thing. All right. So when it comes to sayings, old wives, fables, reject that. Don't listen to none of that stuff. Even though you may have grew up on it, when it comes to this truth, you can't bring that thing in this truth. So it says, don't exercise yourself in that, but exercise thyself rather unto godliness. All right, we got to be exercised unto what the law says. It says, verse 8, it says, for bodily exercise profiteth little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. All right, so understand this, brothers and sisters. It says that we have to exercise ourselves in godliness, in the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, why is Paul telling Timothy this? Why is Paul telling Timothy this? Because he's a young man, okay, of good stature. He's telling him, hey, look and be aware of all of this wickedness that's going to be around you. You're going to have men that's going to try to subvert you, and try to take advantage of you because of your youth. He's saying, hey, your your physical exercise or bodily exercise is going to profit you little. You ain't going to be able to fight all of these dudes. You understand? But it says godliness is profitable unto all things. It's going to be your wits. It's going to be your studying that is going to help you stay afloat and lead even in that young age. That's what Paul's telling Timothy right here. Now, verse 9, it says, this is a faithful saying and worthy of all acceptation. For therefore we both labor and suffer reproach, because we trust in the living God, who is the Savior of all men, especially of those that believe. These things command and teach. Verse 12, it says, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. So what is Paul doing? He's building Timothy up. He's building Timothy up to make sure his mind, his spirit is in the right place. In like manner, we ought to do the same. All right, we ought to be reaching out for counsel. We ought to be leaning to these scriptures and our studying to what keep us in the right mindset. We should be able to learn from the same advice, the same instruction that Paul's giving Timothy right here. Verse 13, it says, till I come, give attendance to reading. What is he saying? If you want to keep your spirit strong, if you want to be able to lead and teach, you have to give attendance to reading. Paul said, I ain't going to be there all the time. It says, till I come back, make sure you're studying the scriptures. That's what Paul's telling him, Timothy right here. It says, till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Make sure you are studying the precepts. Make sure you know the doctrine so you don't get tripped up when these wicked men try to come up here and subvert. All right. It says, neglect not the gift that is in thee. What was in Timothy? He was young, but he had wisdom. The gift was wisdom. All right. It says, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on the hands of the presbytery. All right. So Paul, remember what he said in 1 Corinthians 11. It says, be ye followers of me as I am a follower of Christ. Remember what he said in Galatians 1. No man taught him that. He was taught by Christ himself. So Paul, he put wisdom into Timothy. All right. And that's what he's talking about right here in verse 14. He says, neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on of the hands of the presbytery. So let's go to Deuteronomy 34 and verse 9. This is an example of just that. Watch this. It says, and Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom. Remember, that's the gift. He said, neglect not the gift. And here's why. Watch this. It say, for Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the children of Israel hearkened unto him and did as the Lord commanded Moses. So in like manner, he's saying by the laying of the hands, Paul laying the hands on Timothy, giving him that wisdom to set up elders, to be a leader. And he's giving him this instruction on how to govern himself. Verse 14, it says, neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on of the hands of the presbytery. So think about it. In like manner with us, we want to get our minds right. Man, we got to be around men who know how to do this thing. You understand? You're not going to figure this out by yourself. The more you try to hold on to that idol, the more you try to make sense out of it, and the more you try to figure it out yourself, the longer you're going to be in sin and the longer you're going to have to suffer. And most importantly, we don't know how long our days are going to be. So you're setting yourself up for a great fall. All right, so we gotta follow this example right here. Verse 15 says, meditate upon these things. So everything that Paul's telling them, he said you got to meditate. Meaning what? Don't be a forgetful hearer. Don't just hear the instruction in the counsel one time and then throw it out the window. Did you take notes? Did you write it down? Did you revisit it? Because that's what Paul's telling Timothy. He's saying, meditate upon these things. Give thyself wholly to them, meaning what? We got to sell out. And that's the thing right there. That's a cut for, hey, me, everybody. You feel what I'm saying? Selling out, giving yourself wholly, meaning what? There ain't no looking back. There ain't no looking to the left or to the right. We got to look holy and sell out to these things, even when affliction comes, even when adversity comes. We gotta look at this thing holy. We got to sell out and give our all to this thing right here. That's the only way. That's the only way we're going to overcome and get our minds right, but keep our minds right. Verse 15 again, meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. Meaning what? Everybody's going to be able to see the spirit of Christ rolling in you, like it says in Ecclesiastes 8:1. When wisdom is upon you, it causes a man's face to shine. And that's what we should want, not just for our deliverance, but those around us, because everybody needs hope. Everybody needs to see that example. And it would be great. It would be great if we could be those examples. And that's what we ought to strive to be. Verse 16, it says, take heed unto thyself. So we got to get our minds right. And we can't get our minds right by looking at everybody else falling and not looking at ourselves. Oh, I don't like, oh, she ain't doing this. He ain't doing this. All right, but what about you? Okay. What about you? It say, take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them. That's the key. Continue in the doctrine. Don't follow the idol. Don't follow the bottle. Don't follow the pipe, the blunt, the booty. Don't follow that. It says, take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them. All right, that's the key. Continue. It say, for in doing this, thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. See that thing right there? We're going to save ourselves and them that hear us if we sell out and give ourselves wholly to this godly instruction. Take heed to this godly instruction. All right? All right, from there, let's go to Sirach 33 and 25. All right, this is the book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 33 and verse 25. It say, if thou set thy servant to labor, and we're the servants of God. We're supposed to go to labor. We're supposed to go to the highways and the byways. Okay, that's us. I want you to think about every time you read the scripture, you got to put yourself in it too now. This is talking about actually having servants. But we got to look at ourselves. We are servants to the Lord too. All right. It say, if thou set thy servant to labor, meaning what, put him to work, thou shalt find rest. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be intact because he's focused. He doesn't have time, an idle mind to think about other things. All right, it says, if thou set thy servant to labor, thou shalt find rest. But if thou let him go idle, he shall seek liberty. He's going to seek a way to go against. My Bible. My Bible, y'all. Y'all pray for my Bible. It's been through a lot. It's been through many wars. And I just hit it a little bit. Give me one second. Let me get myself together. Okay, we back. We back in the game. We back in the game. I just hope I ain't got to go to 1 Corinthians no time soon. All right, watch this. 1 Corinthians. Okay, there we go. We back. Now, it say, let me read the scripture again. My apologies. Now it says, if thou set thy servant to labor, thou shalt find rest. But if thou let him go idle, he shall seek liberty. He's going to seek liberty. He's going to try to go against what he set up to do. We have to put ourselves in this scripture right here. We cannot be idle. We have to keep our hand to the plow, brothers and sisters. All right. So from there, let's go to the book of Ezekiel 20 and 16. Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 16. All right, watch this. Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 16. Now keep that in mind, what we just read, y'all. All right, it says, verse 16 is good. It says, because they despise my judgments. Think about the servant. All right, think about the servant, us. It says, because they despise my judgments and walked not in my statutes, but polluted my Sabbaths, for their heart went after their idols. You see that? When you go after your idol, when you go after your lust or your sin, it causes you to despise the judgments of God. It causes you to not walk in his statutes. It causes you to not keep his Sabbaths. So we got to do what? We got to put our hands to the plow. No idleness. All right. We got to do the things that are pleasing to God. Like it said in 1 Timothy 4, we got to do those things so we can find ourselves worthy and the people who follow us and watch us and listen to us. All right. From there, let's go to the book of Wisdom of Solomon 9. All right. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 9 and verse 13. All right. It says, for what man is he that can know the counsel of God? Or who can think what the will of the Lord is? For the thoughts of mortal men are miserable, and our devices are but uncertain. Watch this, verse 15. It says, for the corruptible body presseth down the soul. So it's going into that constant fight. All right, that constant battle between the spirit and the flesh. All right, it says, for the corruptible body presseth down the soul, and the earthly tabernacle weigheth down the mind that museth upon many things. It says that museth upon many things. Your mind, your flesh thinks about many things, but we have to do what? We have to bring our mind into subjection. That's what we have to do. Watch this. And what should it be music upon? Psalms 143. Psalms 143 and verse 5. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 143 and verse 5. It says, I remember the days of old, meaning what? Romans 15:4. Whatsoever is written aforetime is written for our learning. So we got to continue to read these scriptures. It say, I remember the days of old, I meditate on all thy works. I muse on the work of thy hands, meaning what? Not allowing our minds to muse on lust, not allowing our minds to muse on covetousness or whatever it may be. Our minds have got to be mused, thinking, wandering. Even when we wander, it's got to be back to the commandments. And that's not an easy task. But showing you what? If our minds are musing on many things right now, we got a long battle ahead of ourselves. So the best thing to do is seek him early and start now. All right. Don't try to wait, because that's one thing you can't do. You can't fake being in the spirit. You can't fake being righteous, because many, when that destruction comes, many will be destroyed, but there will be some that make it to the wilderness. And at that time, if you haven't been applying these things, getting control of your spirit, bringing it into subjection to Christ, in that day, you ain't going to be able to fake that thing, man. All right, so we need to start now. Getting our minds right. All right, let's go to Ecclesiastes in the Bible, Ecclesiastes chapter 10. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 18. Now, you got to understand this. Remember, it said the servant needs to be putting his hand to the plow, needs to have labor. Opposite of that is slothfulness. Now, I want y'all to think, some of us, well, all of us in some form of fashion, you be coming right back. 1 Peter 2 and 5. 2 verse 5. It says, ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house. That's the building right there. That spiritual house is the building right there. It says, in holy priesthood to offer us spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. Also remember, when it comes to the kingdom of heaven, it's within us. You understand? It's all. So now let's go back to Ecclesiastes 10 and 18. Okay? Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 18. It says, through. Meaning what? If we're not applying the instruction, our spiritual house will be destroyed. We will be brought to desolation if we don't take the instruction and turn away from the idols that are so stupid, are so dumb. Because think about it, majority of us didn't grow up in this truth. So we experienced it, whether it been the lust, the drinking, uh, materialism. Majority, we experienced it. That's why it's stupid, because we already know the end and we already know what it feels like. But yet, we despise the instruction and go after these idols. Okay? I'll read it again. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. So this is something we got to think about, brothers and sisters. Knowing this, those idols, that was Ecclesiastes 10 and 18. Somebody said they missed a precept. And then we went to 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5 to show what the spiritual, what. Think about it. These idols that been discussed in this class, these are addictions. These are actually, if you can't turn away from it, you're an addict. And that's the first step. Like when you hear about those Alcoholic Anonymous meetings, the first thing they say is, hey, you have to admit your transgression and what you're guilty of. So that's what we got to do. First and foremost, you got to admit, all right, I am addicted to this idol. Okay, that's first step. Confess your fault. Combat an addiction, you have to actually combat an addiction with an addiction. And I'm going to show you that. 1 Corinthians 16. I'm not talking about another addiction as an idol or a sin. No. Watch this. This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 15. It says, I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanus, and that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints. When you addict yourselves to the work of God, you would have no time for the addiction to idols. I'll say it again. When you addict yourself to the word of God, you ain't got no time to be addicted to the idol. No, we got to convince ourselves of that because it is the truth. These dumbass idols is going to get us trapped up in sin and get us killed. Because that's what the Most High said in 1 Corinthians 3 and 17. 3 and 17. Okay? From there, let's go to from there. Let's go Proverbs 19 and 15. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 15. Hey, Pablo, all praises. The battle is keeping that addiction up. That's the battle. Okay? Keep it up. Keep it up. All right. Proverbs chapter 19 and 15. It says, slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. An idle soul shall suffer. That's what you got to understand. Take from that thing right there. All right. Let's go to Sirach 5 and 2. That was Proverbs 19 and 15, that last verse right there. All right. Sirach chapter 5, verse 2. All right. All right. It says, follow not thine own mind. So we cannot listen to thy mind. We got to go to the instruction that's given to us. We got to go to what the scriptures tell us. It says, follow not thine own mind in thy strength, to walk in the ways of thy heart. Scripture says don't do that. The things that are pleasing to you, you want to keep stuff to yourself, don't do it. You're going to destroy yourself. You're going to suffer. All right? From there, let's go to Sirach 23 and 16. Sirach chapter 23 and verse 16. All right. It says, two sorts of men multiply sin, and the third will bring wrath. A hot mind is as a burning fire. It will never be quenched till it be consumed. And that's the thing. Knowing that, that's the scary part. That's that addiction right there. That's that dumbass addiction right there. But it's saying that type of mind, if you don't combat it with the word of God, it's going to be consumed with fire. That's what it's telling us right there. I'm going to read it again. It says, two sorts of men multiply sin, and the third will bring wrath. And a hot mind is as a burning fire. It will never be quenched till it be consumed. A fornicator in the body of his flesh will never cease till he have kindled a fire. Till he what? He ain't going to cease until he gets that sensation. You understand? But that sensation ultimately is going to get him consumed. All right? From there. So, knowing that, knowing whatever the idol is, because right there it's talking about fornication. Now, you got to apply that to whatever the idol is. You understand? Don't just, that's what brothers and sisters do. They make the mistake, oh, that's not talking about me. It is talking about you. It is, because you do have, there's a particular idol that is near and dear to your heart that is talking about you. Okay? Let's go to Sirach 14 and 20. So we got to combat this. Remember, combat the addiction with a righteous addiction. Sirach 14 and 20, it says, blessed is the man that doth meditate good things in wisdom, and that reasoneth of holy things by his understanding. We got to meditate on the scriptures, man. When we find our minds musing upon many things, we got to muse it of the things of old, on the great testimonies, on the scriptures. Okay? Let's go to Job chapter 5, verse 7. All right, this is the book of Job, chapter 5, and verse 7. All right, it says, yet man is born unto trouble. Remember what we read earlier in Genesis 6, when the Most High said, hey, he can't mess with man no more. Their imaginations is continually wicked. All right, it says, yet man is born unto trouble, as the sparks fly upward. Verse 8, I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. Knowing that you wicked as hell, what we got to do? We got to seek to God. We got to seek to God. We can't think ourselves. Do not follow your mind. Like it says Sirach 5. Don't do that. Seek to God, because you know you wicked as hell. For you to say that your mind is not something wrong with you, you have to know yourself, brothers and sisters. Okay? From there, let's go to Sirach chapter 6, verse 37. We almost done. Sirach Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha 6 and 37. It says, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord. Remember, it said to meditate. It says, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, and meditate continually. Not today, not next week. No, continually. Let your mind muse upon the commandments of God. Continually meditate. You got to take a step back. When you feel the adversity, take a step back and start meditating on the words of God. It's hard to meditate on them if you never study. Right? It's very hard to meditate on the word of God if you never study. All right, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart, meaning what? He's going to help you, strengthen you, get you together. Your heart is your mind. Remember, today's topic is it's time to get our minds right. The only way we're going to do that is through the Most High in Christ. It says, he shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom at thine own desire. So remember, it said in Proverbs 1, a wise man, he will increase his learning. Right, so we can get our minds right, and we can get them as sound as we want at our own desire. It's up to us. All right, it's up to us. From there, let's go to Psalms chapter 1, verse 2. Psalms chapter 1, verse 2. It says, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. In his law doth he meditate day and night. All right, our delight, our addiction has to be in the laws of God. That's the only way to combat our idolatrous addictions, is to be addicted to the word of God. All right, from there, let's go to Psalms 119 and 15. Psalms chapter 119, verse 15. It says, I will meditate in thy precepts and have respect unto thy ways. When it say, I will, and it says, and have respect unto thy ways, you're like that servant who kept his hands to the plow. He didn't go idle. Because when you go idle, guess what? You lose respect to God's statutes. You defile his Sabbaths, right? You go against everything that you was taught. So it says, I will meditate in thy precepts. When you studying, it says you'll have respect unto thy ways, his laws, statutes, and commandments. All right, from here, let's go to Baruch 4 and 28. Baruch chapter 4 and verse 28. All right, it says, for as it was your mind to go astray from God, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. I remember it says, as your mind to go astray from God, your mind to go astray from God, not with him, not following him. It's in our nature, because we read that in Genesis 6, that our imaginations is always wicked. So for as it was your mind to go astray from God, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. You have to battle the addiction with a righteous addiction. That's what you got to do. If your mind going straight to your idolatrous addiction, the only way to combat it is to combat it with a righteous addiction. Okay? And last scripture, let's go to Ezekiel 37:23. Ezekiel chapter 27 and verse 23. It says, neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols. You understand? And this time, this is the prophetic of when Christ brings back both nations, both southern and northern. He becomes our king, our rightful king. Let's say verse 23. Neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places, wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their God. So it's time to put away the idols, and we got to get our minds right. We got to get our minds right and focus, meditate, study, confess. All of these things have to take place. All right. And with that, say shalom. Pray y'all got something from today's class. All right. All right. Most High in Christ bless.